Hello and welcome. My name's Mrreeeee, and you've probably seen my TikTok about top tanks coming into the War Within beta. Now, this is the longer version and hopefully provides you enough detail about why I think other tanks are performing better than other tanks. And really decide that, yes, you can play any tank that you want coming to War Within, but why the choices that some people will lean to others and lean away from others. Okay, so it's really around describing the different elements that I kind of work with and hopefully help you decide. So I kind of broke it into 5 areas, and that's the damage, the difficulty, the self-sustain, the utility, and of course, if it's fun to play. Now, damage is the one we'll start with. And I'll say with damage, I mean, it really comes down to, there's going to be still sims and there's going to be tuning. So damage is kind of not as important, I think, looking into it. But there are a couple of factors. Now, I think at the moment, Blood DK are doing really well. Druid are doing really well. Prop Paladins kind of middle tier. Warriors kind of the bottom. Vengeance is kind of middling. And Brewmaster is doing really well. Now, Vengeance is one of the interesting ones here because the problem with Vengeance is that a lot of its talents now boost its damage when you use meta. And before that, a lot of tanks, when you play Demon Hunter, you're holding meta to survive. So it's kind of in a weird spot where you want to dump it throughout an M+ fight, for example, or use it on cooldown to get the increased damage, but then you're kind of missing the lacking of survivability. So the damage can be good, but if you're forced into certain dungeons to hold as a mitigation, it's kind of not there. So I think that's what kind of puts Demon Hunter down. You think, oh, the damage kind of feels great. Same with Paladins. I think there's a lot of movement for your concentration, a lot of fights that move around, and cut doesn't really get its utility, and it's just not performing to the damage that DK, Druid, and Monk are. And of course, down the bottom is your Warriors. They're doing okay damage. And I think that when we're talking here about damage, it's pretty similar. Like, if we looked at the Sims, you're looking at minor differences, right? This is where it talks about players say, you can play anything, but this still, most people will generally say this is kind of the damage breakdown. Then we go, okay, so this is my damage. What about difficulty? And then it shifts again. Now, I think when it comes to difficulty, it kind of flips around here. And there are a few reasons for this, okay? Paladin at the moment, I think, is very difficult to play. And the reason Paladin is different to play is because of new changes, and it comes kind of into its self-sustain, keeping yourself alive. Now, if you're in a pug situation and you do a lot of M+ solo and you do a lot of con solo, I think you'll kind of drop down. That difficulty will increase for you as a Paladin player because you've got to do a lot of movement, there's still a lot of weight on your consecration as a defensive. You've got a lot of your self-sustain isn't as strong as it used to be. And I think that's what increases the difficulty of the class. However, if you have a really good group and you're running as a group, Paladin, I think, scores up a bit and actually pushes out and could be a top tank. But I think it then comes to his playstyle because it has a lot of utility, right? Everyone's blessing of Sanks. Sack is huge. The interrupts can be really, there's a lot of caster dungeons in this meta. So I think Paladin could move up. But I think it's still a very clunky class. Some of the hero talent trees, the way it uses his holy power spenders really pigeonholes you into one thing. If you have to use the template tree, you're going to be like, yeah, it's a bit spicy and it's going to feel clunky. So that's why I really don't like the way they play when you talk about difficulty. Blood DK is the same. Now, Blood DK has so many other areas it does really well in, but it is difficult. It has its own opener. There are a lot of moving parts. The way you weave now, Death Strike is important because you can't just spam Death Strike to survive. So those challenges now in the way it plays is a lot harder. So DK is really like, if you're a confident tank and you really want to push yourself this season, I think it's going to perform the best, but it's very hard. Middle tier, we're probably looking at the Demon Hunter, and that's because it feels bad if you played it in last season because of the recent nerfs, the reduced sigils, and then kind of how the interrupts work, and we'll talk about in utility. It kind of makes it a bit difficult to play in the middling. Of course, again, you don't really have as many cooldowns as a Demon Hunter, and so you'll spend a lot of time kiting in dungeons, and I feel like it's really that understanding that movement, how to use your cooldowns is a bit difficult. On the top, though, difficulty, I mean, Druid's probably the easiest class to play. It does a really simple rotation. Brewmaster's up there with some insane damage. They've reduced a lot of the blood and bloat. And of course, Warrior, again, is on there on that simplest play, right? Their rotations are really easy. There's not much difficulty to it. You could probably move Warrior down a bit just because managing magic damage can be quite difficult. But I see if you're looking for playability and easiest to hardest, I'd be looking at Druid and Monk up there. Self-sustain. So this is kind of a controversial issue, and that's because I feel like I know me and Deli have a lot of fights around the new changes with tanks. Like they're trying to balance away because healers felt like they weren't healing because tanks were so self-sustained. Now I get that, and I think it's more to the whole defensive issue that we have at the moment where so many classes of defenses, so the damage coming out is either like it's doing no damage or it's instantly killing you. And so they're trying to change that with the new stamina changes and health changes. So where does that sit you as a tank? And this is what I think. As a tank player, it's the opposite now. So before it was like, okay, healers have nothing to do because tanks are so strong. Well, now tanks really have nothing to do because they can't rotate. It's all based on their healer. So you're going to come in and not feel that god mode that I think you want to feel as a tank. You're going to come into dungeons and you're going to feel more that if your healer is really lacking, you won't get through certain mechanics that you normally would have because you don't have that self-sustain. However, some classes are stronger than others, and that, of course, what puts Blood DK so far up. Because Blood DK, even though its natural build is to self-sustain, they can try and move away it as much as possible, but it's still there and has so many defensives and the ways to heal that it kind of still sits there up the top for self-sustain. I think Druid is also doing well when it comes to space and survivability. They've done a lot of buffs to their They've done a lot of buffs, increasing their cooldown defensive. I think their new change to their healing is doing quite well. And I think because your rotation is a lot easier, you're easily able to manage yourself. And I think that's what puts them up there. It's probably the second base tank. And I think increasing the stamina, you got a bigger health pool. It's basic that classic vibes they want to come into where heal has a lot bigger health pool to play with. And in that control is there that I think Druid and DK are sitting up there probably up top. This is again let's go to Vengeance Demon Hunter here, where I think Vengeance Demon Hunter has that simplistically in its rotation, but loses now the way to manage mobs. Okay, its utility isn't as good as anymore because it's less, and when you interrupt cast, they kind of reappear, and that comes to that utility situation. So they have, of course, that constant heal, but they just don't have the defenses, and I think that's where Demon Hunters fall off. Monk comes in. I think Monk is probably middle tier again. I think that their recent changes are making them so they're not as damaging into the magic damage with their new Celestial Brew. I think they you could even probably argue that they can go up to best tier in this space because they're managed because of the new change of tank. The way they manage, of course, physical damage is like the stagger is such a strong mechanic in this space. So I think Brew kind of sits between best and middle for sustain. Of course, I'm actually putting them best because now I'm thinking about it. Like they also with their talent tree, they would get more for your healer. So if your healer is stronger, the way your talents work increases the healing the monk takes. So it actually benefits a good healer. So I think I might put them up at best. There you go, a bit of a swap there. Paladins, again, it's this. Paladins could be here because of their utility and their playstyle, and people play around you, but only if it's a good team. I think Paladins are too clunky. I think they're just not getting up there. I think their defenses are very hard to use. I think their concentration and a lot of the dungeons you're going to do, there's a lot of movement, and that clunkiness just makes it that just a bit more extra harder to tank than the others, right? You have to think about how you're positioning, how you're pulling, and that makes it harder. And I think you have to rely on people, maybe the way they're currently sitting. I think more people are playing Paladins on the beta are feeling like they just feel naturally weaker. They can't keep up for so long. So that's what Paladins are sitting at the bottom. Not saying any changes could change it, but right now, yeah, I wouldn't be playing one. And of course, the Warrior, really good. But, same thing. Once you start getting to the fights with the rotting magic damage or high magic damage, you just feel you don't have enough cooldowns to survive. So I think that kind of looks into sustain a bit. All right. Let's go to utility. And I think there's a few things you can look at utility, and this what really puts Bear at the top. I mean, Mark of the Wild is such a big thing in keys that you really want a Druid in every key you can. And in raid, that percentage verse is just so strong for pushing keys, right? And that just puts it up there. Of course, you have all your knockbacks and your Vortex, but I think that verse to bring into your team is so valuable. And your Raw can help. I just think it has so much. Okay. Coming in next, utility-wise, I guess for DK, I mean, you have your battle res just with the Druid. And I think you probably with DK is middle. Of course, it does have AMS shield, which is really good for raid. Battle res is useful. I think death grips and a lot of the grip and movement is really important for Blood DK. I think there's a lot of fights in this Mythic Plus season that's you're gonna need to control a lot of magic casters, a lot of moving mobs, and I think that can put DK up there. So you could probably move DK into the best space in the top when it comes to utility. Uh, Vengeance Demon Hunter, again, just a natural buff of its. I would put this in best, except for the way its sigils work, kind of puts it down. I think Vengeance Demon Hunter, that fiery brand is so strong. I think this it's going to be another caster meta. I think casters are going to dominate again. I think it's very hard not to get away with that, especially with your Org Evokers. That percent magic damage. Even when you look at like melee dealers, your rep Paladin, they're doing mostly holy damage, not even ret damage. So it's not like the Mystic Touch buff of the monk. It's kind of really not that good. So they're doing more magic damage. So I think Vengeance Demon Hunter gets a bit of a way here. That bring to a keys in dungeon. I think you have value there because of that debuff. And really, people I don't think play DBS Hunter, that Demon Hunter, that much, right? So I think that in itself will boost it. But I think the problem is the lack of sigils it now has, the way mobs reset, with their cast and interrupt them, kind of makes them lackluster than what they were before. So I think that kind of drops down for the Vengeance Hunter. I think your Paladin can really skyrocket here and get really strong. I think the Paladin is really the sleeper here for the group. I think it's really shit, but if you get a good group and you get buffs, I think it could be the top. But Paladin, I guess the interrupts is really good. Your sack, your bop, your freedom, like the utility is there. I just think the other things it's lacking makes it you just won't have any time to do it. With groups you don't do. You'll spend so much time sustaining, trying to keep alive. You won't have time to think about other people in your group. And I think they need to buff that, and then they will shine. So I think that's what's putting them in the middle tier. Monks, I mean, the knockback's kind of good. Mystic Touch, again, Mystic Touch just not benefiting that much. I think that, your knockback ring's cool. Paralysis can be really good for some pulls, and knocking around can be useful. But Mystic Touch just falling short because I just don't think the physical damage is there. And I'd be interested to see if they make changes to that to make more value of that. But I just don't think it's really the utility you need on a monk. It's just, And I think that's the same with Warrior. I mean, Battle Shout, Battle Cry, again, with the physical damage. I don't think you're going to have many physical. I think it's much lower now how many classes are doing physical damage. And I mean, yes, your Rallying Cry is really good for utility, but that's an Intervene could be something to use, but you probably won't. And I think that's what makes it falls as a utility in this space. Fun and hero talents, I think, is the last space when you look at tanks. And I think straight away, the best hero talents were the Blood DK. I think DK and even Unholy DK did really well. You've got a class that summons giant scythes that cut into your enemies. Like, I think that play is so fun, and I think yes, you've got a high difficulty cap here that makes it difficult, but I think the class, the way it grips and plays, is a really fun spec, I think, because you're going to have that sustain you want as a tank, that you can survive so long. You're going to love this more. I think this is what's really going to influence players, and this is why I place these two at the top. That, there are ups and downs for a lot of classes, but at the end of the day, too, is about the playability. And I think Blood DK, yes, if you can get over the difficulty, has so many wins in other areas that it's so strong. Yes, it's performing its damage. Yes, it has good self-sustain. Yes, utility, and it's fun. And I think as a tank player, any tank player out there, you want to feel that you can survive. When people die and you're tanking that boss the last 10%, that feels awesome. And I think the changes they're making are getting rid of that. And I think that really we're going to lose tank players because that's just my opinion here. So I think if you're looking to play a good tank, you want to play Blood DK. And inside of that, you want to play Druid because you're going to feel stronger. At the moment, they feel the strongest when things go to shit. You don't have to rely on your DPS that much. You don't have to rely on your healers. Yes, there is some nerfs to that, but they are the least impacted compared to the other tanks. Where Druid also wins here, it's really simple. And if I was going to ask someone, hey, do you want to play a class coming into the War Within, I would recommend Druid because it's easier. I probably wouldn't recommend a new tank to play Blood DK. It's probably too difficult. I think I'd recommend Druid or inside of that Monk because they're actually really fun. I don't think the Luna build is that crazy for Druid. Like, their talents aren't, well, here we go. And same with Brewmaster. It's really passive stuff and really not that crazy. Celestial, use your Celestial Shield and then you can do extra damage. But I think Monk and Druid are both really simple and play really nice. You do lots of damage. You can do really high damage. It's fun to knock back. Your movement is really strong. You have a new little double jump now with Monk. I think that brings that simplest, pure, fun energy to the front. And that's what I would play if you want to play a simple tank. I think that after that, you probably want to look at your Warrior. Again, it has that simplistically played. It's not a hard rotation. I think you get good movement. The thunderclap is really fun. I just think when you're relying so much, and this what these three are, they rely so much more on their healers that, and because of the way they've been simmed and nerfed, that you feel weaker. You feel like you're relying on a healer. If you get into a group with a random and they can't heal, you're going to feel frustrated. You can't carry it through, while the other classes can. And that's where I think Warrior kind of falls off, especially Prop Paladin at the bottom there. I mean, it's one of the Templar feels so clunky with the shield. Yes, it looks cool. The hammer's falling down, but it's so hard to play with 5 holy power. If you do the other one, it's kind of just like a random button that just looks like it buffs someone quickly. Yes, it does insane damage, but I guess, is that fun to play for a new player with consecration? No, it's not. Yes, again, if you're a strong tank and you have a good group, you could probably have enjoyed this, but I just don't think if you were picking a tank, I wouldn't be looking at Prop Paladin. You're just going to have a hard time getting there. Vengeance, Demon Hunter, I mean, it's like had its time in the sun. It was Icarus. It flew too close. It's been nerfed. If you've played Vengeance before, you're just going to be wishing for the, back what it was, and you'll just be, upset with yourself. If you're new to the game, I guess, and you haven't tried Vengeance before, you're probably like, it's not too bad. But I think the hero talents just aren't there. I feel like the way you're going to interrupt is going to feel lackluster because of the way the new interrupts work and cast. And I just don't think it performs as fun as it has been. And that kind of shafts my decision here. So I've put it down there. So really for me, I think what did I put on the bottom? Warrior on the bottom. And then I kind of put best here for my Druid and DK. And I think that just becomes, and all those different things to come over, but you're just looking at basic things. I think DK and Druid are just doing insane damage. They have really good sustain. They bring really good utility, and they're fun, either simpler or have some complexity that make them fun to play. Your middle tier, I think your Monk and your Paladin are going to be really based on your party. If you have a good party of your friends, you could probably find success, but I still think they're lacking in certain areas. I think they need buffing and tuning. I don't think they're there yet for the first week. If you're coming in, they could, but you could have a good group with them that kind of synergize with you. I think DH is too gutted. I think too many people played it. I don't think people are going to play it because of that. I've told you about the interrupt utility just isn't there. I don't think survivability is there, and it kind of drops off. And at the bottom, I mean, Warrior has a really good kit. I think it can be fun with the Lightning build or the Demolish build. What I think it's lacking, of course, is just that magic damage, its utility. I think that its survivability is low. It's probably the hardest tank to play in that sense, and I just think it doesn't perform that well. So I guess, yeah, hopefully I didn't talk too fast, and hopefully I kind of give you my mindset with all the different moving parts and a quick summary of what I think the tanks will be in the War Within. If you like that video, want to talk more, please hit me up in the comments, and I will do my best to reply back. And I'm going to work through the healing video next, and then some DPS, and then we'll start playing the War Within. So I'm Mrreeeee. Please like, subscribe, comment, and yeah, we'll see you for the next video. Peace out.